Lifeboat Live, we have 4 simple rules. Number 1, we don't discuss politics, ever. Number 2, this is not a religious channel, and while you might hear people say, God bless you, or I'm going to pray for you, or I wouldn't have gotten through this without my faith, that's fine. What's not fine is to say, my God is better than your God, or here's why you're not getting into heaven. It's not going to fly. Number 3, we believe wholeheartedly if you can't control your tongue, then you can't control your life. So while on board, there's not going to be any cursing in the live chat, period. And number 4, there is no room for mean people on the lifeboat. Because we discuss very sensitive things from people's past in our group setting, we got to protect those people. The only way they feel confident and comfortable discussing those things is in an environment that is free of trolls and mean people. So if you're a mean person or you're a troll, we're going to block you for life. And if your account happens to be less than 24 hours old, we're probably a little suspicious right from the word go. Why? Well, because there are people in this world who enjoy being cruel solely for the sake of being cruel. It's not going to fly here. But if you're here because you're trying to get sober and live your best life, then you might find that the lifeboat is just that, a lifeboat. I'm Captain Tommy Scoville, and we will see you on deck. Yeah. Hey, everybody, I'm Captain Tommy Scoville, and you were on the lifeboat. And if you're wondering why I'm sitting here sort of rocking back and forth, it's because the people that put together the equipment for this stuff are all blithering idiots. And truthfully, the software that is needed to do what we do should be Tommy-proof. And really, it's not. So, if it's gotten to the point where it's given Mark problems, I mean, everything gives me problems. If it's got, I was just talking to Mark before we got rolling that I'm not a huge fan of technology in general. One of the reasons that I groove to watches the way I do is because they're so mechanical. There's nothing high tech in a watch, even brand new ones that are mechanical. There's nothing in there that's high tech. But once you start throwing batteries and computer chips and things like that in there, I want nothing to do with them. They bring me no joy. But before we get rolling, a couple of things I wanted to go over. First of all, people, let's continue to pray for the world and what's going on out there, because these people are in desperate need of prayers, and that's on both sides of the equation. No politics here, just everybody involved could use our thoughts and our prayers to go out to them. Secondly, I have had a absolute plethora of people who have reached out to me in the last couple of days to ask me if Alan Ballantyne and Lady Fiona Crispin are okay. If you've been watching the news, a very large portion of the Australian continent is now underwater. They've been having some ridiculous flooding that's going on there. Just want everyone to know that both of the of our Aussies are safe. Alan is in the chat. Excellent. So yeah, they're both safe. They're both on high ground. But the people of the rest of those who are not quite as fortunate as Alan and Fiona could use your thoughts and prayers as well, because they're really going through it. This is about the worst flooding that they've seen in a century or so. So anything you could do with thoughts and prayers would be a really good idea on that as well. Hey, Derek N., good to see you, brother. So people, we have spent a lot of time on the lifeboat talking about sort of the pitfalls, right? A great deal of the time that we spend is dedicated to speaking about how to avoid relapse, how to cope with the day-to-day struggles that accompany sobriety. And you can sort of fall into a trap where, it's not a very joyous subject matter. It's something that we absolutely have to talk about, because this is the toolbox that keeps you sober. And assembling that kind of a list of tools together for people, I think, is important. And it's, the reason that we spend so much time concentrating on it. One of the things that I don't think we spend enough time on is things like happiness and joy. So today we're going to talk about joy. And people, there's a big difference. Wait a second. Lord Kiss Freak, good to see you, brother. Hope you're doing well, man. You've been missed. On a regular basis, someone will say, when is he going to be back? So it's good to see you. People, there's a big difference between happiness and joy. And I think that the two words get used synonymously. And I think that that's an error. It's possible to be joyous in the worst times in life. And that's usually not the case with happiness. Let me give you a great example. As you guys know, because I just spoke about it the other night, it's been a little over a year now, a year and a couple of days since I lost my dad. And when my dad passed, that was one of the saddest moments of my life. That the next few days were just horrific. I was overwhelmed with how sad that entire thing was. And obviously I wasn't particularly happy. However, I was joyous. I really was through that entire process. I really feel like we were blessed with how my father passed. There are people who endure just awful deaths, and it's long and drawn out. And when you start getting up into your late years, it's sad to watch someone lose their dignity. And it happens a lot. You see people who, these guys that fought in World War II, and where you see pictures of them and their chest is out to here, and they look like Captain America. And then they spend, the final years or the final days of their life, with someone having to clean up after them because they can't, control their bodily functions and things of that nature. And that was something I feared. As I was growing up, my dad was always my hero. He was a superhero in my eyes. And just his passing was beautiful. The way he went was amazing. He knew it was going to happen. He had a chance to tell everybody how he felt. He was ready and he was happy, and, he was absolutely in a place where he was ready to go to the other side. And I think that the joy that I took in that was incredible, but I could take that joy amidst sorrow. And so they're two very different things. And I think that I think that for me anyway, happiness is something that strikes. I use the term all the time. I say you got to choose to be happy. And I think the right way to put it may be you got to choose to be joyous, I think might be the better way to put it. When everything in my life is going really smooth, I tend to be happy. But I can choose to be joyous and to look at the things in life that are worth taking joy in. And some of them, people just, the things, the small things, we've talked about it before. I got up this morning and I'm still recovering from this floor. Right. So my hands are still doing the arthritis thing. So I got up this morning and my hands were killing me, but I'm not kidding, folks. The joy in that cup of coffee this morning was ridiculous. And I don't mean the caffeine or anything else. I mean that smell in the morning. it was one of those things that, and as I was tasting it and smelling it and consuming it, I thought to myself, this is awesome. And I actually took the time to sort of reflect on the joys of the small things. And then throughout the day today, it's been one of those days. The reason that I picked this for a subject matter is just because it's been a recurring theme sort of throughout the day. My brother called me today, and Johnny's a busy dude, especially with everything going on in his life. There's been talk of him leaving to go to Australia. As most people know, he's been working on that for a long time. I don't know what the schedule is going to be. I don't think anyone does, but he's, getting ready for that. And so we don't get to talk nearly as much as we used to. And we spent about an hour on the phone today, which was great. And right after I hung up with him, we were talking about watches and life and, being happy and being joyous and things like that. And right after I hung up, he called me back and, actually, he didn't. He left a voice message, one of those like text messages that's just voice. And he said, you have no idea how much of my life I spent worrying about you. And he wasn't saying it to be a buzzkill. He was saying it because he said the peace that I have knowing that I don't have to worry about you anymore. And I've said this on the channel many times. One of, if not the greatest thing that has happened to me because of my sobriety was knowing that that's how my dad left, having absolutely no fear that I was going to relapse and go back. And I teach people, right? We talk about this. I tell people all the time, it's probably never a great idea to say never, that I'm never going to do this, because you really should only concentrate on today. I think I can safely say that I'm going to concentrate on every single day for the rest of my life. And in the process, ensure that I don't ever go back, But as we go forward and we're looking at all of the things that are happening in life, you have to sort of concentrate on joy, right? Now, there's a couple of different ways you can do that. Number one, you can look for the small things in life to actually take joy in. A cup of coffee would be one, right? This furry little ball of fluff next to me, who's actually laying in her basket and being a good kitty. The amount of joy I get from that cat is incredible. But I think a lot of times when we're first starting out in sobriety, we're expecting it to come and knock on our door, right? You're going to open the door and it's going to be like, hey, how you doing? I'm Joy. I understand you're sober, going to be hanging out, spending a lot more time here. Just wanted to introduce myself and let you know that I'll be here, right? It's not going to happen, people. Because you remove the chemical out of your life, joy isn't going to come to your front door, slap you in the face and tell you they're moving in. You have to figure out what it is in life that brings you joy and then start to concentrate on that. The number of emails I get from people who say, you know what, I'm not getting high anymore, but I'll tell you something, man, I'm miserable. And, you never want to be a jerk to anybody that's fighting the good fight. But, what I want to say to all of these people is, what are you doing to be happy? What are you doing to be joyous? Are you taking any steps to actually make yourself happy? Or are you waiting for it to come to the front door? Because it's not going to happen, people. When Mark talks about making new memories, may I make a suggestion? Don't make memories doing things that don't make you happy. What do you think? Figure out what it is that makes you happy and spend more time doing it. I don't know too many people that aren't overwhelmed with joy when they talk to their offspring, right? Talking to your kids is something that can bring you amazing joy, especially if you're working on a good relationship. And a lot of times for those of us coming out of addiction, we didn't have the best relationships in the world with our kids. So if you're starting to build that relationship and it's bringing you joy, may I suggest that you do it more often, right? If I'm having a bad day, I can call my daughter and it's over like that. She makes me laugh hysterically. She's just a really, really funny kid. And she's always happy. She really is. I could probably count on one hand the number of times in the last year where she was not a happy little individual. And each time she called me. And the joy I get in that is just insane, right? But as you start to assemble all of these different things that make you happy, you can structure your life in such a way to ensure that joy is a part of your everyday. But if you're going to wait for it to show up on its own, you're going to be miserable. And what's going to happen is these things right here, right? They're going to be white all the time. Because if that's your plan for sobriety, if your plan is to wait for joy to come to you and say, ha, life is good, then you're going to be doing this one, right? Until you figure out a better plan. And is it easy? I don't know. It's getting easier. It really is. The longer I do this, the easier it gets. And you know why that is, people? Not because I've got more sobriety under my belt or anything else, because I'm getting really good at being prejudiced. Before you freak out, I'm not talking about people. I'm not talking about religions or races or things like that. I'm talking about stuff. When people say, hey, you want to do this? No, I don't. Been there, done that, didn't enjoy it. I'm not going to go do that. Right? There are whole things in my life that I'm just not going to do anymore. Right? There's no reason for me to do any of these things that don't bring me joy. Now, you want to do this? You betcha, right? That's in the wheelhouse. This is the kind of thing that makes me happy. I will be more than happy to go and do that. Spend a little time doing that. The longer that I'm sober, the better I get at weeding out the things that make me miserable and not doing them anymore, and really getting a very long list of things that I find joy in and concentrating my life on those. You know, I've talked about this at length. What I'm doing now for a living brings me joy. So for 8 to 10 hours a day, I'm not at all bummed out with what I'm doing for a vocation. I really like it. I don't spend time with people I don't like at all. When I was a drug addict, I spent a lot of time around people that I had nothing in common with other than my drug of choice, right? And because of that, very oftentimes, the entire time I was sitting with this person or these people and waiting for the drugs to come, because that's usually the only time I was hanging out with these people, I was gritting my teeth. I was thinking about how bad I'd like to slap this person, right? Or how much I would like to get away from this person. And it was a part of my daily event, right? This was something that I had to do every single day of my life. Spend time with people that I don't like. Don't do it anymore at all. I don't do it. Okay. It's one of those things, people, that I don't intend to bog myself down with things that don't bring me joy. And the longer that I'm sober, the longer the list is getting. I bring joy is an important mindset to learn and regularly practice. It's not just about what happens to you. More importantly, it is about your reactions to events, circumstances, people, situations. Sometimes joy may feel impermanent or fickle. But if you can create it and make it a stable part of your life, right? People, this is what we're talking about. This is the wheelhouse. This is not something that is going to sneak up on you. It's not going to introduce itself. It is an activity, right? You have to actively seek things out. So I have honed down my existence to different things that I do on the daily basis that make me happy. Spending time with this fur ball. I spend probably an hour and a half a day playing with this cat, right? And I absolutely love it. It brings me ridiculous joy. The things that I've trained this little fur ball to do, people are blown away with just how receptive this cat is to being led, I guess. Right? Cats, you don't technically train, because when you want them to do something on demand, they'll look at you like that frog in the cartoons and go, ribbit, right? You know, sing and dance when no one's looking. But however, that's one of the things, right? The watches are another thing. Recreation is another thing, right? Going on walks outside, picking things that I didn't do in my previous life. And you know what, people? It shouldn't be too damn hard to pick things that you didn't do in your previous life. Think about it. I don't know about how it was for you when you were an addict, but for me, 16 hours a day was spent being an addict. Hands down. From the time I got up in the morning, I had one job. That job was addiction. And until I went to sleep at night or nodded out, that was my existence. So anything other than that is going to be a new experience. Regardless of how long I had been on this planet, that was all I had been doing for a really long time. So I have gotten to the point where there's not enough hours in the day to do all of the fun things that I want to do. For real. I've told you ad nauseum that I can't watch things on television the way I used to, right? So these days, everything I watch on TV is educational. Not because I'm trying to be the smartest man alive, but because the way they edit those things, documentaries, things like that, don't give me a headache, right? So I block about 2 hours at the end of every day where I do these little educational, documentaries and things. I spend a lot of time reading. If it's not your thing, that's great. But I'm telling you how I'm structuring my life. There is the coolest place in the whole world here in this town. And on Sundays, you can go out, give them $5, and they hand you a paper bag, and you can fill it with books for $5. Fill it. You have any idea how many books that you can get in a bag? For real. You put about 15, 20 books in there. So if I see a cover of something that has any interest to me at all, I throw it in the bag. I come home. If I read the first 4 pages and it does not bring me joy, I throw it back in the bag, right? I'll bring the thing back, drop it off and swap that thing out for another one. But let me see. Let me see here. Hold on one second here, people. Yeah, I don't see it. So hook me up.
Hold on. Let me scroll up here a minute. I got to go back up myself. Hi, guys. Just so you guys can hear me.
Yeah.
Truth says he was talking to Jesse. He says, my problem is that I always hold myself up against the expectation of who I was supposed to be.
You know what? I think we all do that. But I think I did maybe 1 or 2 shows on expectations and what they do to us. I think for a lot of years I did this. And it was, I don't know, it was kind of, for me anyway, the biggest expectations were always the ones that I put on myself. And I never picked things that made me happy. I picked things that I thought would make me look cool, right? So the businessman that I tried to be and the things that I did for a living, honestly, for me, was always sort of engineered so that if someone was looking at me from a distance, they'd go, oh yeah, he's got it together, right? Nice car, nice watch. He's living in a nice place. He's got a cool vocation, whatever the thing was. But none of those things were me. And the problem becomes that you can get so lost in it that a couple of decades go by and you don't know who you are. Like you really get to a point where you can forget what you started out as or what you hope to be.
Celebrities would probably kind of fall into that category a lot. I would think.
I think that I know I told this story the other day, but when Jack said to me, do you know how many times we were sitting waiting on the dope man and you said if I could do it all over again, I would do this. People, you can do it all over again. For real. But I mean, the takeaway for this entire video needs to be that if you can't define what joy is, you ain't going to find it. If you're going to engineer yourself a new life, if you're going to design yourself the ideal life, then you need to know what that ideal life is, right? My suggestion has always been from the very first day of starting this show, same with my partner, we have never strayed from this. And our suggestion has been, if you continue to do dope, you're never going to figure out what happy is, because dope doesn't bring happy. It might bring sedation, right? It might bring the alleviation of guilt, the alleviation of shame. It'll remove pain of all kinds, but it isn't going to bring happy. You can convince yourself it does. I remember times in my life where I thought, boy, if I had 2 pounds, I would be happy.
Euphoria is not happiness.
No, it's not.
Two different things.
There's a huge difference between them. And I think, I'm trying to remember who said it yesterday, but it really is writing a check. I think it might have been James that said, doing dope was like, I knew that I was putting off all of that misery for a later date, right? but you're not being happy. You're just putting off being miserable. That's no way to live. You have to figure out, forget what the expectations of what you wanted, forget all of that. You have to concentrate on what would make me happy, right? What in life would make me happy? And I will say this, I've had occupations where I made an awful lot of money, and I've had occupations where I made, no money. And I had times in my life where I was so poor that I was burning furniture to stay warm. No joke. And none of those times was I ever really happy. It's funny today, when I was speaking to my brother, I said, I don't think in my life on this planet, I've ever been this happy as I am right now. And I'm talking about, 7 years old and waiting for Christmas, like that kind of, and the reason is, it's not just because I'm doing what I want. It's because there's a level of freedom in knowing that I don't have a monkey on my back.
100%.
I might decide, I might decide in 4 weeks that I'm done with watches, right? I'll move on to something else. I'm going to be happy in whatever I do because I'm not going to pick anything to do that makes me unhappy.
You got 4 weeks till you find that out. That's what I'm saying.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Bottom line. And what made me miserable, and I convinced myself for years that, well, this job's making me miserable, or this woman is making me miserable, or what was making me miserable was me. And the drugs, which I convinced myself was how I was going to, I was an unhappy person and heroin made me happy. And that was never the case. I don't think there was a day I was happy on heroin. For real. There were days I was wasted. There were days I was nodding out and it felt good. But happy, truthfully happy, never happened.
Right.
So we've said from day one on the lifeboat, you want to figure out how you're going to do life. You're not going to figure that out wasted. You're not. If you think everything we say is absolute horse feces, give it a try, right? Eliminate dope for 3 months and figure out who you want to be. And if who you want to be after 3 months of being sober is a guy that gets high, then I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, exactly.
I've truthfully never met that person. I've never met anybody, even the people that relapse and go back because they say, I can't stay. Within 2 weeks of being back, they'll go, oh God, I can't believe I'm doing this again. We've said it how many times? Nobody, when the teacher in 4th grade says, I would like you to write down on a piece of paper exactly what you want to be when you grow up, right? Nobody said junkie.
Yeah.
Nobody said alcoholic.
I'm going to read this one from Truth here real quick.
Knock yourself out.
He says, the lifeboat, wages were owed in the lifeboat. He said gratitude, or I said graduated salutatorian. I'm guessing
salutatorian.
No, I think it's like a valedictorian kind of thing.
Right. Salutatorian would be second.
Okay. Yeah. My father ran a successful business. I had all the potential in the right setting to be a success. I find no joy in money, and I want to comment on that one because that's me. I can tell you from life experience. Prior to being an addict, I look back on my happiest part of my life, and it was when I was making $6 an hour, living in a single wide trailer with my wife and my 6-month-old son. Okay, I look back on that, and the situation, if I was just to look at it from the outside, somebody driving down the street, you sit there and think, man, those guys over there are really having a bad time of it. No. I was the happiest I ever was in that moment. And the reason why is because, listen guys, that money ain't going to do nothing but keep you going in a just sense of being able to be alive and function, right? Don't get me wrong. I ain't saying we shouldn't strive to make a lot of money. I'm not saying that, because we can use that to do the things that we like to do, right? But it's not a necessity. That's where people really go left on that. To have $1 million is not a necessity. None of that is expected. And let me tell you something. when I really was. I'm not just saying that. I had this even, and then after the fact, I started making more money, right? We moved in, we bought a house. We started, on the outside, it looked like we all had our stuff all together. Let me tell you something. That was the most tumultuous time in my life. Because once you get something like what you have, now you're trying to maintain. And that in itself, when you're talking monetary things, is probably one of the most stressful things that you experience. And I find no joy in it. So I'm with you on that, Truth. Now, again, I'm not saying people shouldn't strive to make really good money, because I do. I try to. Everybody tries to, right? I mean, we get that. But it should not be the source of the joy. It can be like a product of it, but I'm just, that's just my view on that. But, and it's my experience. So, yeah.
Well, when you say, I graduated salutatorian, my father ran a successful business, I had all of the potential and the right setting to be a success. My question to you would be, how do you define success? Because it sounds like, you obviously did well in school. Were you doing that because that made you happy? Or were you doing that because that was expected? Or because, again, this just boils down to being able to define, what in your head is going to bring you joy and what makes you successful.
I think he was saying, it's kind of what he's saying, right? I think he kind of figured that out as he was trying to share, I think. I'm not sure. But, yeah, you're right, man, 100%. You got to know what you're shooting for. How do you get to a goal if you don't know what it is? And we've talked about that so many times. It applies to so many different things. It really does. That came from you. I learned that from you, Tommy.
Well, really, if you oh, you know what? There's a good comment. Establish your core values. What are your top 3? I am a big believer. Thank you, Jeffrey Canali. I'm a big believer in making lists about everything these days. I was never a list guy, right? But Truth, I think what it really comes down to is how you define success, right? There are people for whom pushing a broom, right, and having the freedom of not having a boss. If you own the broom you're pushing, right, dig a ditch but own the shovel. There are people for whom not working for someone else, regardless of how much money you make, means success in the terms of happiness. But if you tie success to money, it doesn't sound to me like that's your get down. And I think that's probably when I really became happy was when I could clearly define what it is I wanted in life. And the inability to do that for me was always a dope thing. It's like everything else. We've talked about this, I don't know how many times since the boat started floating. People say, well, spirituality is really important and making a living is really important and love is really important. None of that is something that you can comprehend if you're sticking a needle in your arm 3 times a day. None of that is something that you can concentrate on if you're drinking 32 shots of booze a day, right? A fifth is 32 shots. You're drinking a fifth a day. There's no time for God, love, anything.
There's no clarity at all.
No, you're never gonna arrive at what is actually going to make you happy. The only way to clearly define that is, and I agree with Alex, having a set of core values and having a darn goal, right? If the goal is happiness, not money, I think you're in probably good shape. The nice thing about money is it allows you to not worry about stupid things.
Yep.
Right? Having enough money to make sure that the landlord's never calling you to tell you you're getting evicted. That's a pretty important thing, right?
Yeah.
Having enough money that you can go out and spend $400 on an appetizer at some ridiculous restaurant, probably not so important. But that's you and that's me. There are people out there for whom success is going to mean a Ferrari. Now, I don't honestly believe that brings joy. I really don't.
Right.
I've had some nice cars. They never made me happy. I mean, they for brief periods of time, but there's the real satisfaction. I mean, honestly, and I'm not trying to sound like Mother Teresa people. I'm not, but I swear to you, these days I take more joy in people on the boat who are getting sober than I ever did making money. For real.
Let me say this real quick too, just real quick, that
Yeah.
you won't never know until you know, right? And I know that sounds ridiculous. It's like, oh, how you gonna know if you don't know? No, right? No, it's the truth. Once that light bulb goes off in your head and you found it, you can't find the joy unless you know what it looks like. And so you have to stop and look at your foundation and be like, listen, this is what I'm shooting for. This is my goal. And like Truth was saying, and he was saying he basically did exactly what we were just talking about. He was saying that. He's like, hey, I was putting that perfect thing and it never made me happy. And he was going through all that, and I'm telling you, man, I'm with that, because the whole I don't know, man. I'm not, like I said, I don't want people to get the impression that I'm trying to say, hey, don't worry about money, because that would be a ridiculous comment to make. Because number one, we have certain responsibilities in our lives that require us to do certain things. Number two, guess what? If I can make my daughter happy by buying her some makeup, yeah, that money is helping me make her happy at that point. If you guys get what I'm saying there. There's a certain level of stuff that we have to, accumulate, but it does not have to be the goal. The goal needs to be the happiness and the joy that's the byproduct of whatever we're doing. And that's just, that's how I look at it. And like I said, guys, I was making $6 an hour, living in a trailer, and I look back on that, and my son was always with me, and guess what? He's not anymore. That's what's different, right? And I'm not saying that to like bring people down, but the fact of the matter is our kids grow up and they leave the house. I'm talking, this kid, when I was working on my rusted truck, would be in the bed of my truck with a handheld flat tip screwdriver trying to fix the rust holes in my truck while I'm underneath the hood. This kid was with me all the time. And I'm saying this because I didn't even realize how happy I was until I was no longer there. And and then what happens after that? Life happens. Guess what? Now I got a pill addiction. And then you really forget. And it's just again, maybe I wasn't putting it out there the way I wanted to, because I don't want people to think that the money is not important, because money is important at a certain level, but the joy has to be the goal. And however you get to that goal is up to you. But I can tell you that in my experience, the joy comes from really the people that I surround myself with, and the people that and the things that I truly enjoy doing. And that's why we encourage you guys to find different hobbies. You might not find a good hobby right away, but like Tommy with the watches, I mean, guys, you don't get to see this like I get to see it on the back. I'm pulling a page out of Tommy's book right here, because I'm looking across the screen, and every day before the show he's talking about, he's got these watches and he's trying to, fix them. And we just had this conversation about an old versus a new and all that stuff. And I could see the passion just coming right out of him. That makes him happy. He's finding that joy right there. And I guess what I'm saying is, I think everybody should strive to do that, because it will make your addiction recovery easier. It really does. It really kind of pads it, in my opinion. But anyway, sorry.
I got a couple. No, Derek N says, when I was selling and got locked up, I figured out money doesn't rule the world. My family does in my heart. I'll tell you what, Derek, every single person I ever met locked up said the exact same thing. You don't realize the most important things in life until they're taken away from you. I think the struggle becomes that so many people, when they walk out, forget. Once they get back into the world, it's easy for them to start start slipping. But Truth said, and this one, Truth, I need you to enlighten me a little on this one. He said, I thrived psychologically and emotionally on the struggle of living out of my car, depending on friends, and feeling loved no matter what. I'm a little confused. You're saying that was the happiest point when you say you thrived psychologically and emotionally? Do you mean that that was where the happiness was for you?
I think that's what he was saying, if I understood it right. Yeah. He's just trying to say that, wasn't actually the money that was doing it, and when he was down on his luck, like I was speaking about my story, he was still able to find that joy and happiness, and it was true stuff because it was almost like an emotional thing, if that makes any sense. If I'm wrong on that, correct me. But yeah.
Yeah, you know what? I think there really is something to discovering a purpose in life. The Jeffrey Kennelly says, discover a purpose and a mission in life. And again, I think that every single thing that every single person is saying all comes back to one thing. And that again and again is none of these things happen if you got a buzz. For real, you're not going to find your mission. You're not going to discover your joy. You're not going to find your happiness.
Because it's fake, guys. How many times we said that? It really is.
Truth said, I felt like I was living on a leap of faith. Well, you know what? Here's the thing. Then, if it were me, truth, I would explore the whole concept of living on a leap of faith. I would probably try not to do it living out of a car. That's me. But there are so many different ways. If living on a leap of faith is something that makes you happy, that is something that can be explored because there are so many different ways that can be done. But you know what? I can't judge either, bro. I mean, if you're somebody that there are people for whom, there are entire cultures here in the United States of people who are living off the grid, living in vans, living out of cars. And for some people, that's something that makes them happy. I'm not sure that for me, I would need something a little bit more.
Well, wasn't there a whole society like over, I think, was it Middle Eastern or maybe African? That's where we got our word nomad from. Ain't that kind of what they do? They just they don't really have a place to stay or anything. They just kind of move mobily. But they're together, and that's their society, right? They're happy people, or they probably wouldn't continue to do it. And see it, and I think it goes like you said. I think it has to circle back to the fact that none of that is possible if you're getting high or drunk or whatever you're doing, because any kind of happiness that you think you might be experiencing during those times, again, it's fake. It's not true stuff. It has to come back to center, and I know that a lot of you guys in here are already getting it. You guys know it. Most of you, almost all of you in here, are getting it. Really. Yeah, he said it was 20 years ago. He said he don't suggest it. That's what he says. Sorry, I don't mean to laugh, but that was a funny one there, Truth. You don't suggest doing it. Yeah, I get it. And that's the thing. I don't think. I think everybody's road is a little bit different, and however you get to where you're going, you got to recognize where you're at. You got to know where you're going. Tommy has said that so many times about knowing what the goal is, and I buy into that 100% because you just can't really move forward in the correct direction. You might be going in a general direction, but unless you pinpoint it down to what really makes you happy and what really brings you joy, you're not going to find it. You're just not. And I can tell you right now, when you put on them beer goggles or you drop some pills or shoot up or whatever you're doing, it's gonna fuzz your vision, and it's really hard to find it.
Swiss Vapor, my friend. I realize that you're going through it. And I know you were talking about a while back. You were talking about the fear of losing your mom, knowing full well your dad's going to go next. I just celebrated the 1 year anniversary of losing my dad, and I love my mom more than anything in the world. Shocker, I'm going to lose her too. It is how it goes, and unfortunately, it's something that there's nobody on this planet. God forbid that you pass first, but we all lose our mothers and our fathers, and it sucks, and it is part of what happens. The biggest waste that can happen is that you don't take every single moment that you can spend with them and live it in joy because of the fear of losing them, if that makes sense. Don't get so caught up in the the fear that you're not living every single minute that you can with them and enjoying it to the fullest, because that really is the absolute biggest sin that you could do.
Yep.
I talked about so many times on the show, I have talked about how many times, the time I spent incarcerated that I didn't get to spend with my loved ones. That time was wasted. I don't waste any time anymore. I don't. The focus of my life more than anything, and it's funny, anywhere I look, there's a timekeeping device. But to me, it is the only commodity in the world that you can't manufacture more of. You can't steal it. You can't borrow it. You can't do anything, right? The clock's ticking. So spend time with them. Celebrate the fact that they're alive now. Spend every minute that you can with them, and make the most of that time, because nobody gets off of this planet alive, right? It's just how it works. The really sad thing is that, as you start to get older, I remember when my grandfather passed, and my dad and I drove out to New York for the funeral. And my dad said to me on the way there, "You do realize that the next time this happens, it's me." And I said, "Oh man, don't say that stuff." You know what I mean? Like, I didn't want to hear that. And I was blessed. I got about 30 years after that I was able to spend with him. But my kid is next in line. This is just the progression. This is what happens. I mean, I'm not trying to be a buzzkill, people, but I think in sobriety, sometimes we let things, we're part of this world, whether we like it or not. And I think that for most of us who have been in the life, for most of us that have spent time addicted, we pretended for a long period of time that we didn't have to cope with any of that, right? You know what I mean? Like, boy, that's a bummer, I'm getting wasted. That sucked, I'm getting high. Or that was too much fun, I'm going to get high, right? We knocked the edges off of all emotions. There were no real highs, there were no real lows. We did everything we could to stay at a baseline of wasted.
Right.
And there's a really good reason that that's called wasted, right? Because it's wasting time, it's wasting potential. And I don't mean Wall Street rich. I mean, whatever you were meant to be. It wasn't an alcoholic or a junkie, right? That's not your potential. And wasted potential is the saddest thing in the entire world. I can't remember who said it. Kurt Vonnegut, the author, said, "Of all the words of mice and men, the saddest are what might have been." Wow. Can't live our life realizing that the potential for who you could be and what you can be and the joy that you can live and all of that, if you're getting it in a can 12 ounces at a time, you're peeing away your life. If you're getting it in a pill or you're sticking a needle in your arm, any of those things, people, there's no way that's going to bring you happiness. And if it sounds to you people like I'm preaching to the choir, you do realize that the 40 of us that are going to be listening to this right now, by tomorrow afternoon, there's going to be 250 that have listened to it. I'm trying not to preach to the choir. I realize that most of you are fighting the good fight with us, but there are people who are going to hear this that may not be. And I'll tell you something, people, the joy that I take in you all getting sober is an amazing thing. It is my mission, right? There are, like I said earlier, there's joy in misery. When some of the people on this boat have stumbled, right, and have either temporarily or even permanently lost the good fight, it's not going to derail what we do. And Mark and I talk about this a lot because it's one of those things that really can drag you down. It's one of those things that can kill you if you let it. But when somebody stumbles, and someone did the other day, I got an email that said, I got wasted. It was a tough email, but they were telling me the truth.
Yep.
There's joy in that. That's not the activity of an addict.
That's true change.
That's change.
Something
and
changed
instantly,
there. Yep.
Yeah, you can celebrate that. Look, we lost Cindy Lou, right? And that was a kick in the stomach. It really was. But at the same time, I was thinking, honestly, there's joy in the fact that she wasn't hurt, right? I mean, I really feel like at that point, Cindy was at peace. There's always joy there if you're looking for it. And I think that, we had a pretty tough show. The day that Cindy died, it was a tough show.
It was.
But honestly, there was joy through all of that. I think for everybody that knew her, I think we all felt that, she was living with it. There was some real struggles in her life, and for all it was worth, she at least was at peace.
Yeah, 100%. That's a, guys, I think that is really what we're kind of all trying to say, is the fact that you got to be able to recognize it. You got to be able to see it when it's there, and you got to understand that you can find the joy in anything. It's going to be there. It's always present, right? I mean, like I said, I'm a biblical man. We don't go the whole Bible route and all that kind of stuff, but listen, if you do, for me, He's always with me. That's joy immediate. It's nothing else, nothing short of. And again, like I said, I know everybody doesn't go down that road or what have you, but that's for me. And what I'm saying is, I think everybody can find that kind of a thing if they just think about it and really sit back. And that's why when I asked you earlier, Tommy, about the topic, and you sent that word over, I was like, yeah, that's a good one, because we don't hardly ever try to do the whole the positive end of what we can. Because guys, at the end of the day, this is a positive thing, even though it might be hard to achieve at first. It's a positive thing. This is what keeps us from white knuckling. He said it earlier. So that's really what I would kind of grab a hold of, and just see that, and see that that's your goal, is to find that joy, and don't white knuckle. I mean, honestly, I don't even know what else to say, or what other phrases we could use to kind of put that out there, but that's just what it is.
I'd also like to do a shout out to we have Mr. Canali is in the audience today, and Jeffrey's a man that I have known for a very long period of time, and I have talked to you people about in the past. He is he's a very philosophical guy, a very deep thinker, and I told his story the other day. He's my friend that had reached out to me. He's absolutely a great guy, a guy that I have an incredible amount of respect for, and I feel blessed that he's here checking in with us. Alex, I love you, my brother. I'm glad that you're here.
It's good to meet you, Jeffrey. And yeah, I'm glad to see Alan too. I mean, yeah,
very, 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 very good dude. And he's local, so I should be running into him. I told you the story that I let this cat down. When I was between prison sentences, we were doing some stuff, and I was just basically in that life and wasted. And he called me on it. Was pretty frustrated by it, but it's always nice when you can continue to move forward. People. One of the things that we've said on the boat, and I haven't said it in a long time, because there are people who I've had people argue with me on this in the past, but what it really boils down to is I am of the firm belief, if you're not moving forward, you're moving backwards. I really believe that. And I think it's one of those things that, in your sobriety and life in general, you really need to constantly be, taking the steps necessary, whether it be joy, happiness, success, anything. You're either moving in the right direction or you're moving in the wrong direction. It's one of those things that we talk about. I'm sorry. Jeffrey said, I have literally seen him save someone's life twice. Something, people, that is actually a true story. And if he hadn't said that, I wouldn't have remembered that. But he was there for two. This is just real briefly, because it's a funny story, but we were incarcerated, and there is a rule that they will knock a ton of time off of your sentence if you save somebody's life. And I stopped. There was a guy who was bleeding to death, and I ran into a cell to help this person, and they ended up actually knocking a ton of time off my sentence for it.
Wow.
And while all of the paperwork was going through for this to help me get out earlier, we're in the chow hall, and the guy who's sitting at one table away from us and eating starts to choke. And I'm looking at everybody around me, like, this guy's turning purple. And, I was hoping that somebody was going to jump up and do something, like, they're going to think I'm trying to work them for more time here. I'm not going to, save somebody while my paperwork is still on the warden's desk. But since nobody did, I hopped up and gave the guy the Heimlich, but when it was over, I said to the guy, the cop said, "What's your name? I want to fill out the paperwork." I'm like, "No, no, no, I'm good. I'm good. You
That,
don't want to tell my name."
that got Tommy out of his old either blue or orange uniform. They gave him one with a red cross patch on it.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you know what's funny is when I saved the guy who was bleeding, they had to walk me down the length of the place, and they don't know what's up. They show up, and I'm just drenched in blood from head to toe. So they handcuffed me and walked me out of there while people yelled, "What are you doing? You know, you and Pat are friends. What are you doing?" Like they thought I was in there trying to hurt the
Right.
guy or whatever. But
I
yeah, it
want
was one of those strange situations.
I want to read something here real quick too, and you need to like accept this. It says Miss V wrote, "He has helped save more lives than two," and she's speaking to Jeffrey. So
Uh,
yeah,
that's a really nice thing to say, Miss V. I appreciate that. Honestly, I do. That's a
and
really cool thing.
and then after that, everybody was just saying, yeah, yeah,
That's nice. I really appreciate that. I really do.
yeah. And
Swiss Vapor, man. You know what? I know you're not in a great place, bud. Um, he says, at least I'm not thinking of benzos or morphine or opioids. I'm thinking right now of them, uh, and I don't drive that road. Not digging that rabbit hole anymore. Good for you, bud. You know what? I know you're going through a tough time, Swiss, but the thing is, and we've established this, and you know this. We've had this conversation, but the number of demons that you've slayed already, right? Um, it's like anything else in life. You know, once you've done it and you know you can, right? It's a learned behavior. The first time you do anything is difficult. In the time that I've known you, right, the habits that you've been able to get under control, to knock out one of them would be an amazing thing. But you know, you've wrestled with benzos and with booze and with opioids, and I mean, truthfully, I got nothing but faith in you, my brother. I really do. And I mean that from the bottom of my heart. And I think that since you've begun to come here and sort of let it all hang out, you know, I think that was probably a real turning point. When you first came onto the boat, it was kind of a different situation. But once you sort of became family here and started coming and, I don't know, bleeding, you know, when the time was necessary, when you would come here and just sort of let the entire crew know, there's been a real transformation.
well,
And I think that
Jeffrey's in there dropping it, man. You need to feel it to heal it. Love it.
wouldn't be a bad t-shirt.
Love it.
Yeah, would not be a bad t-shirt. The vape, you got this, my brother. You got this. I promise you, you do. And I hate to rehash all of the things that we've gone through in a 60-second period of time, but you know what to do, right? Take a deep breath, get out of the house.
Yeah, there's no shame in turning around and walking the other way.
No, there isn't. Get out of the house, walk around, get some oxygen in your lungs. All of these things that we have talked about in the past, you know, you've got the ability to call on all of these. And if all else fails, right, you get into the group and start talking to these people. They've reached out to you in the past. Everybody has stepped up to the plate when necessary. But whatever you do, brother, don't park in your own head. Never works, right? How many times have we said this? Bottle it up, right? Sit there and think about it and just obsess about it, because that always cures the problem. It's the most ridiculous statement in the world, right? Don't sit and we already know that two thoughts can't occupy the same brain at the same time. So if you're finding yourself digging a hole there, get out of it, right? Find that you know what brings you joy. We all know what brings you joy, right? Go talk to your daughter. We've already established the fact that this girl has the intelligence of about 90% of the people on the boat combined. She has said, for real. Did you ever read some of the things that his daughter said? I mean, this is not something that comes out of a 7-year-old's mouth.
Right.
Go and spend a little time talking to your daughter, Vape. I promise you, it'll pull you out of exactly where you're at.
Yep. Kids will do that to you guys for real. I'm not even Tommy speaking 100% gospel there. That is, this is so. When it comes out of something so innocent, you know that it's pure, and that's just how it is, man. It'll really it can yank you out of the darkest room, man.
Yeah,
Really
no,
can.
no question. And it's a whole lot cheaper and a whole lot safer than the previous route, right? Um, Vape, I have no doubt, my friend, this is going to be another night that you get through. But you did the right thing by coming here and talking. Hey, Joe Birdwell, I did not see your name in there. I apologize, Joe. Good to see you, brother.
Yeah, he came in about 15 minutes ago. I said hi to him in the chat.
Okay, good. Good to see you, Joe.
Grandma JJ's here too. So JJ, sorry, Grandma nice. JJ. I didn't know if she changed her name just to JJ there.
Good, because she doesn't look like her grandma.
No, she doesn't, does she? That's kind of what I told her. I told her that the first time. I was like, "What? Really?"
Yeah, that doesn't fit the emoji. Yeah. If you're going to do that, you're going to have to change the emoji up. Swiss Vapor says, "I am a veteran. I'm a veteran. Never had combat like this one." I believe that.
Yep.
I absolutely believe that. But no different than being a veteran, brother. Right? There's training. You know exactly what you need to do. Right? It's just lay it out there, brother. You know exactly what you got to do it. And the crazy thing is that this too will pass. We've talked about this before. When you're in the throes and you feel like you're about to screw up and you're about to get high, you know how long that normally lasts? About 5 minutes. That's what you got to get over. Even if it's dragging on because you're letting it. Get out of your head, change what's going on in your dome, and you got about 5 minutes worth of misery. Get that out of your head. Go hang with your kid. Go do any of the other things that you know will change your mindset.
Yep.
And the next thing you know, it's gone, it's past, and then you're back to living a fairly normal life until the next episode. That's what sobriety is, right? Mm-hmm. It's boring, nothing's happening, and then sheer terror. And that's, there's long moments of just business as usual, followed by some stark panic where you really got to pull it together or you're going to lose it. Right now, you're in that moment. Get through it. I promise you, you're going to. There's not a doubt in my mind.
Yeah, 100%. And guys, and this is something we haven't really talked about here. And I'm not going to get into deep subject because we're kind of into the stream. But if you got to, sometimes it helps to go to a public place. There's so much going on in a public place that, like we just said, your brain can't, two ideas can't occupy your brain at one time. So if you're kind of looking around, you're busying yourself. You know what I mean?
Color, the mall, anything.
Anything.
Just get out of whatever you do, you don't sit on the couch, right? Stand at the same four walls and thinking that things are going to change. Get out, change your environment, do whatever you got to do. So people, hey, Yahusha's disciple.
Yep.
Have a wonderful evening, everybody. Much love to you all. I am at 1 month tonight. Thank you. I love this book. Congratulations.
There you go.
Is awesome.
Heck yeah.
That is awesome. Good for you.
Awesome stuff right there. Heck yeah. Yes.
Yeah, that is absolutely awesome. I could not be any happier for you. People, that pulls us up to the top of the hour, and you know what that means, right? A couple of things. Number one, it means that we will be back 24 hours from now. Same bat time, same bat channel. We will meet right here where we will do the same thing. Between now and then, everybody's got one assignment, right? Reach out and try to save somebody. Swiss Vape, your assignment is to reach out and try to save yourself. You got this, right? I am Captain Tommy Scoville, and on the other side of the glass,
Mark Wages.
And this, people, is a cat in a basket. All right, good night, everybody.